All right, we are live. I'm hosting it tonight because we're having some audio technical difficulties here. But Steve's going to do the relay call with the typing, and we are going to go forth here. So, of course, we have Steve with us, as always, and our other counterpart, Marsha P., down in FLA, and our guest, Mr. Alex Dudek. Welcome.
Good to be here. Appreciate y'all for having me. Thanks.
No worries, no worries. We got a few subjects going on tonight. We'll get into those in a few minutes. So why don't we get an introduction with Alex, since we pretty much only know him through comments.
Yeah, I have a face and everything. It's the worst. I guess I'm a collector. Have been for about 3 or 4 years now. It was the COVID hobby. So when I think a lot of people were stuck at home and not sure what to do with their lives, that was my hobby I picked up. But it kind of dated back to when I was in high school, and I was a big, I guess, music nerd. This was in like the mid 2000s, and everybody I knew was sort of into obviously like the current pop stuff, and I was like listening to Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull and that kind of stuff. So I was like a collector of CDs when people were like getting iPods and stuff. So I think in a lot of ways it kind of came full circle. So I do have a channel officially. I haven't posted anything on it. So I just want to thank Steve at All the World's a Stage for being my lone subscriber. It brought a lone tear to my eye, and I just want to thank him from the bottom of my black soul that he subscribed to a non-content channel, and hopefully there will be content to come. So looking forward to contributing to the stream and everything comes with it. It's true, that was a miracle, Steve, that it was actually available. But that's the context of the chat. Was that's the only two things in this world I need to be happy is beer and vinyl, and then we'll all be
that's
okay.
the channel name. Because I'll be your second subscriber. Beer and vinyl.
Oh,
thank you, Marsha. I appreciate you.
We'll race. So where are you out of, Alex?
I am in Columbus, Ohio. So been Midwest pretty much my whole life, and but yeah, I've been in Columbus the last 4 years or so. So yeah.
And where were you before Columbus?
I spent a few years in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then prior to that, have always just been the Midwest. So either Ohio, or I spent a couple years in Michigan for grad school. So.
Okay, so we're 3/4 Michiganders.
Yeah, that came up during one of the other streams. Yeah, so I went to grad school at Grand Valley State University outside of Grand Rapids. Okay. So I lived in the Grand Rapids area for a couple of years.
All right. Well, you're not as cool of a Michigander as me and Trevor, being from the Detroit area, but. We'll let it slide.
I live in Columbus, so I'm sure there's probably some other implications going on there. So yeah.
I mean, I didn't go to either state or Michigan. I went to Central Michigan, so I have
fire up chips.
I don't care about that at all.
Fire up chips. We love it.
I'm just a blue collar working stiff from high school on. So let's see.
Yeah, and it's not like I went to main campus. I went to one of the extension centers in the suburbs, so.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. Let's see. I'm sure Pi will prefer this version. Yeah, I'm sure he'll find us here. Well, cool. Well, shall we begin on the first subject? I think. What should we do? The movie review first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here, we'll stay silent. We'll let Steve go, because I'm sure he's got the major bulk of the hypnosis stuff
for sure.
Knowledge.
We'll see.
I would agree.
Okay, so if I now have unmuted, I should be able to talk, and it's not going to bother you guys. All right, so I think I'm not sure who came up with the idea to watch this. I think Marsha, was it you that came up with the idea to? Oh, Trevor, was you? Okay. I wanted to watch it earlier, but then this whole week kind of got screwed up for me, so I didn't watch it until last night. Saddest part of it was the fact that the two of them, they really had no communication the last 13 years, I think he said. But they kind of stole. Well, I don't think they stole it from me, but it was just how I had always thought about the album cover of Dark Side of the Moon. Is that, I forget who it was in the documentary said it, but said, if the album had only sold 10,000 copies, it would not have been an iconic album cover, And I mean, I've always thought that it is, God, just an average album cover. Because to me, there's nothing special about that except for the music that's inside it. It's, I understand why it's iconic now because it sold 40 million copies, but I did like it. I was surprised at how many other artists they had worked with. I mean, I knew some of them. I knew they did a lot with UFO and Wishbone Ash, but there were a lot of other ones that just blew me away that they had done. I enjoyed it. Today, in fact, I looked up to find a list of all the album covers they have done, and it even said it was not a complete listing, and there were hundreds there. So, but I would highly recommend it. I watched it on Amazon. Had to pay, I think, $6 for it, but it was well worth the money. So I am going to hit mute and listen to you guys.
Okay. I as well watched it last night because I wanted it pretty fresh in memory. And besides, during the week, I have a hard time dedicating 2 hours to a movie anyway. So last night was perfect. I agree. Fantastic movie. And it was rather sad that, Poe and Storm just kind of fell apart at the end. And I didn't even know about Poe. All I knew was Storm Thurgeson. He was the only one out of that whole collective that I knew about. I was really surprised with the inclusion of Peter Christopherson. I knew him, and they mentioned in the movie of his involvement with Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV and Coil. That's how I knew him. And he was also a video director. So that was my familiarity with it. I had no idea he was involved in hypnosis. And then just the artists that were talking heads through the whole thing was just a really cool story and how unique they were with their art, because a lot of times you could tell that was a hypnosis cover just by looking at it without even looking at the credits of it. So anyone else? The other two you can unmute if you want.
I just realized that I didn't have my mute taken off. There were a couple of things I was very surprised about. I didn't realize that they had such a friendship with the guys from Pink Floyd before they started. I thought they came together as artists and found each other that way, as opposed to just being friends that lived down the street from each other.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of cool. It's getting buds involved in them early on. Very cool. Yeah. Alex, did you see it?
Yeah, I watched earlier, and same, it was one of those things that I think and we'll get into it when we do some show and tell, of it gave me a little bit of a new respect for hypnosis covers, because some of them I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant, and others I'm like, that is silly, what are they doing, sort of thing. But sitting from kind of the other side, and especially I love the dynamic that they were talking about of Poe was the photographer, he was a little more easygoing, and
Mhm.
Storm was a bit more of a storm, right? Like I
Was
think
an
they
asshole,
touched
yeah.
on
Yeah,
those
he was
things a lot.
the idea. Though I did find it
Yeah.
funny. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. That
Oh,
helps.
but you know, same with with Marsha's point. Like I had no idea. Like it started with this, and actually, the funny thing for me, which I guess more on my ignorance, was up until I saw it, I didn't even consider or realize that that was the picture of them. Anytime I looked at this album cover, I just like saw that it was just like this trippy. I loved it. I was like, this is trippy. This is psychedelic. This is whatever. And then they mentioned, they're like, well, they prefer that there's an album cover on it, or they prefer that there's a band photo on there. Huh. Great. Loved that. So, yeah, I loved it. It was awesome.
The one part before I forget is the part that made me laugh the hardest, and I'm sure the director probably, well, Anton Corbijn probably did this on purpose. That one section where all the talking heads are like saying, "Oh, Storm is a jerk. He's an asshole. He's so hard to get along with." And then the first person who says he's a sweetheart is Roger Waters. I'm like, of course it's Roger Waters, because he can't be an asshole.
That's like Steve's
So-
favorite guy, right, Steve? Steve loves Roger, I
Well,
think.
yeah. Why don't we give Steve the-
What was that?
That,
what was
that
the
you
last-
love Roger Waters. He's like,
Oh
you
yeah,
love him?
I'm a big Roger Waters fan. Yeah. No. Are we? Well, wait. Finish going around, and then we can get back to that.
Well,
what, like show off. Oh, okay.
I took away from the movie that after the whole pig incident, that him and Roger Waters stopped talking. I didn't realize the pig incident was as huge as it was. I didn't realize that it was this sort of catalyst for their downfall. That's kind of how the movie, I think, portrayed it to be. Like,
Yeah.
that in
apparently-
the picture of the goddamn statue in the Himalayan mountains.
That was funny too. Yeah, because I never realized that was. I thought that was in a studio from the looks of it.
Same. When
'Cause
we
it
had that
looks
8-track
so-
rolling around in the floorboards of my mom's car. I've seen that 1,001 times. If I've seen it
Right.
once.
And the fact that they helicoptered a silly little statue on top of Everest or wherever it was at, it's like, yeah, they were right. They could have just threw some, salt down in a studio and, done it for a fraction of the cost.
Well, and I agree with what Storm had said about the Venus and Mars cover. Like, it doesn't interest me to do that, because it's not that it's a bad cover, but if you're going to have an artist come to you with their own idea, why do they even need you? What's the point? You know, if they're not going to be able to provide anything creative to it, but I understand that is also a very privileged take. Like, they were obviously not hurting for cash if they could say, no, we don't want to do your album cover, Paul McCartney, or I don't want to do your cover.
Well, and that's what they were kind of alluding to, especially towards the end when the 80s rolled around, that the money wasn't flowing in like it was before, and it was just a different scene altogether. It was changing rapidly at the time. So, yeah.
Now, I wish they would have followed up and said, this is what they did after it. Even just a little 5-minute brief rundown of what each of them did after Hypnosis. I know there's a doc about Storm out there, but I couldn't find it on YouTube or any of the streaming services.
Yeah, they could have done it like American Graffiti style, just,
exactly.
Well, and he did a ton of stuff.
Yeah, Storm did
individually. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, still continue with Gilmore and Pink Floyd. Actually, one of the record I sent Steve several months back, the Bruce Dickinson album. That's a Storm Thurgeson picture right there too. So,
Hi, Pie.
Simon's king. So, should we do the show and tell part of the Hypnosis?
I think I probably have the least amount of records.
I had to really scrape. I even climbed up into the attic to get a couple. So.
Oh, really?
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I have a lot on CD. I don't have on albums. I thought I had one, but it turns out I actually have 3. But one I'm going to take out of the pile because I saw Steve with the album cover on a t-shirt in a recent video he did. So
Yeah, I got 3, like one that I didn't care for, and then I got 2 that I like, and then a couple CDs of classics. So why don't we give Steve the floor so he can, get his vocal cords going.
All right. So as far as the album covers went, I did 3 that I love and 3 that I hate. Let's get the hate out of the way. And they showed this last night. It's just a cow. Okay. How much did they pay for this? What are you paying an artist for here? You go out into a field, take a picture of a cow. That's it. Thank you very much. A band I like, but this is probably their worst album cover, and that's Yes, Tormato. It's a horrible album, and actually it's a bad album too. I think it's one of their worst albums for sure. What is this, 78, I think? And then one of my favorite bands, because that's just another bad album cover, Never Say Die. I mean, they look kind of like birds, but they're in pilots outfits, and it's not bad enough, but then they carry it over to the back and show them in the cockpit. It's a horrible album cover, and Technical Ecstasy, the album before it, is no better. Now the three of theirs that I love are, and these might be my favorite albums by all 3 of these artists. Pretty Things, Silk Torpedo, fantastic album. And the one thing I did discover in doing this, I prefer original artwork over photographs. Okay, or something even done digitally. I mean, this is 1974, so this is an artist. There's nothing digital here. Then this album, it's actually a pretty simple album cover, but I've always found it to be quite beautiful. That's Genesis, Wind and Wuthering. And in the back. And they printed this on a nice stock too. So, and then Trevor, the album you mentioned, Skunk Works. My only knock on this album cover is it's 2 separate pieces. I wish this just would have been a continuation across, but it is a very cool album cover, that's for sure. So that is the one thing I realized, is that a lot of their stuff that has that digital look, or their creative spin on things, like Technical Ecstasy, like Alan Parsons' I, Robot, yeah, Technical Ecstasy, like UFO Obsession, and a number of UFO albums are like that. It's just not it's not the kind of art that I'm looking for. So those are my 3 really good and 3 really bad, and I will hit the mute button.
Okay, since I unmuted first, I guess the hate ones. I mean, 2 of them were already. Well, actually, all 3 have been named. I mean, it doesn't help that both these albums in the Black Sabbath arsenal aren't great records in the first place. I know in recent years, a lot of people have been going back, oh, they're fantastic. And I'm like, I've been listening to these for 30 years. You can't convince me that these are great, great albums. I mean, they have their moments, but yeah, the artwork, yeah, not much, especially Technical Ecstasy. It's just dumb. And I mean, the thing I do like about this is just the fact that you can tell it's a hypnosis. There's something about the photographs that they take. I don't know if it's the lighting or the color scheme. I don't know. You can just tell that it's theirs. It's kind of like a signature look. The other hate one that we talked about, because it is just kind of just basic, is Venus and Mars. And actually, I didn't even know that they did this cover because it's just so simple. You know, there's not much to it at all. So, so there's that one. The ones that I like, and mostly, I don't know, maybe because of nostalgia. This was the first album I ever bought from this band. I bought on cassette back in the day, but Dirty Deeds, Done Dirt Cheap. I remember being in 5th grade, getting this record, having it on cassette, and being in the car with my dad. And when the song Big Balls came on, I'm like trying to ball myself into the corner. Like, he is going to throw this out the window. And he ended up laughing at it a whole lot. So,
Trevor, I always thought that was on my list. I always thought that album cover looks like a Devo record or something. Like, that looks like very new wave. Like,
right.
That does not represent what might be inside, I always thought.
Which is also because this is the international version too. There's a different version in Australia, but yeah. Again, just once I found out that this was hypnosis, I'm like, oh, of course it is, just because of the look of the photograph. It's just signature. Another one, nostalgia. The first time I ever heard this band was from this album. They got much popular later on, but that's High and Dry from Def Leppard. I want to say that this was what they referred to in the movie. This was like one of the rejects, I want to say. You know how they had the pile of bands that they commissioned this to, and they would, you know, cross it out. I think this was supposed to be for someone else, and Def Leppard accepted it. So there's that one. And then on CD, I dug out both these things, so I'll just show them real quick. I love the story that they told about Houses of the Holy. This is the Japanese CD of it. I really never really knew the backstory. I knew it was a pair of kids that they had, but you know how they really did a cut and paste of the whole scheme was like really cool. How they put that all together.
I thought that was pretty cool too.
And then I got this as a promo. Band on the Run. This is the 25th anniversary version of it. But yeah, it's just a kind of it's simple, super simple, but yeah, just a cool album cover with all the people in there.
That was a cool part of the movie. I have that record. I've looked at it a bazillion times. Never did I look at the cover from like the perspective that they took that picture of, and now it like to me gives it a completely new like meaning. Like I look at that, like I always just looked at it like, oh, it looks like a band. Like it's, you know, not all the work that went into that.
Not that
I recognize. I'm sorry?
That it was supposed to be a theme like they're breaking out of jail.
Right. I recognize James Coburn instantly and Christopher Lee. The other guys, I didn't know who they were aside from the Wings people, but yeah, those are my 3 and 4 right there. So, Alex, want to go?
Sure, yeah, I'll go. And I pulled a lot because I like a lot of these, and I kind of just went through a lot of I probably looked at the same list that Steve was talking about earlier and just started pulling stuff. And I think, there's some of them that I think I'll show that I love because they sort of represent like the excess of what Hypnosis did, which is probably, I think, what some of the stuff that Steve was talking about that he might dislike, but also like some of the really, really simple stuff I really like as well. So first, just a shout out. I'm just really actually, I was for sure Steve was going to pick this.
That's the one I said Steve was wearing a t-shirt of earlier this week.
But I guess, but it's very, I mean, it's a picture that was taken, it's a photo that was obviously taken from somebody else, and it's very non-Hypnosis, right? Like there's not, so I understand maybe that's why he didn't choose it, but let's see. One of the, it's funny, Steve picked sort of the, I guess like the brother or sister album to this. I always loved sort of the subtleness of A Trick of the Tail from the album cover. Again, very different. This was first record without Peter Gabriel that they did, and I think holds up as well as those previous four. And so, again, very non-Hypnosis, but I've always loved this cover a lot. Let's see here. This one didn't get shown, probably. I might have got shown in one of like the montage sort of clips, but for any like the kind of wild British Canterbury Prague type stuff, Caravan, by no means their best record, but this is Cunning Stunts. Yes, that is Cunning Stunts. They had a way of naming their things, just kind of ridiculous records, but very strange person in like this very strange suit looking into two mirrors that reflect two very different things. That's one of those I don't know if I love or not. It's just very weird. Steve did say he didn't like this one, but I think this is to me like Hypnosis to the fullest here. Alan Parsons Project, I, Robot. This was apparently taken without any permission at the Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, which is it's like the reflection of the computer. It's kind of a pain, but and then obviously the whole sort of AI thing now, which is kind of weird to think about now, given all the conversations about AI happening. I think what I appreciate this is that this really reflects the actual music that is in like that's in the record itself. Like it is completely tracks in that way. And let's see, the last one I'll show of things that I like a lot. Where'd it go? Again, very non-Hypnosis like, but I love this cover from ELO's or Electric Light Orchestra at the time, their debut. I always thought this was great. The light bulb that is, of course, turned off. There is no light coming from the bulb itself, but it's a very bright room. Again, very kind of abstract, but I always like that one. Ones that I dislike or don't care for. Granted, I blame the artist for this because these they had a long history of making just some pretty terrible album cover art, so I'm just going to blame their influence on this. Most of them got censored anyway, but to me, it's just like all their kind of album, their cover art just sort of represented all the worst things of like rock and roll, like manhood in the worst of ways, animal magnetism, Scorpions. Funny enough, not their worst. In fact, if I had an uncensored version of Love Drive, that would have been on here, but you know, it's the man standing up in front of the woman and there's a dog, and it's just all right.
Very smell the glove.
It's very smell the glove. It's exactly right. Like that is sort of what we were making fun of the whole time. One of my favorite, actually, I'll bring this up because I guess it's one of the, I think them working with Wishbone Ash in a really great way. Obviously, this is just a perfect record in my opinion. But Argus, I mean, what's funny is, like, when you see the back of this, what do you all see? Like, what does this appear like
Darth
to you?
Vader.
It's Darth Vader, well before Darth Vader, right? Like, so that to me was in a really great way. This is more or less just like a letdown. This was the follow-up Wishbone 4. It's more or less like just the picture of the band in a very boring way. I don't know what the sort of artistic expression is with this, or why it's good, important, whatever it is. It just seems like a letdown. And musically, I do like it, but obviously it was not as great as August. And, funny, just that last one. Yeah, I agree, Steve. Funny that this was what Trevor said was one of his favorites, but I think he said it might have been based on like nostalgia or whatever. Def Leppard is one of my favorite bands of all time. And this is just the whole somebody diving and everybody looking up. And it's just, I mean, this is theoretically what people would claim is one of the best new wave of British heavy metal records out there. This is a perfect record in my opinion. And I just, one of those that this cover does not match what's inside at all. And so, yeah, that would fall under one of my least favorites of Hypnosis stuff. So for me.
All right, Marcia.
All right, I'll start out with the ones that I don't like, and I don't own any of these. So I did some searching today, and so I do fucking hate this cover because I don't get it. It makes no sense to me. I think it would just be a better cover, quite frankly, if Tit was hanging out. Is it bubblegum? Is it Play-Doh? Is it I don't get any of it.
It's whatever you want it to
Right.
be, Marcia. It's whatever you want it to be.
That makes it even more confusing.
That makes
for
it
me,
worse.
Alex,
Yeah.
to be quite frank. Yeah, it's always bothered me. I need things to make more sense. This one I hate. Montrose, Jump on It.
Yeah.
And I hate it not because of the misogyny, but because this is something a 14-year-old boy would have come up with, not a bunch of artists.
Right.
And then this one just creeps me out. The ones with the so this is toe fat and the heads have been replaced with big toes. It's just creepy. I think
that's just taking it literally.
Yeah, I think the concept's kind of cool, but it kind of creeps me out a little bit. So of the records that I own this Peter Gabriel melt, which they didn't talk about at all. And I've heard how they've done that. This is actually a Polaroid. And what they did is they just, run their finger over the chemicals as it was processing. So, and then that's the back. This isn't a gatefold. I don't know if it's my copy is not a gatefold or if it just didn't come as a gatefold. But missed opportunity, I think, with that. And then I have the 10cc original soundtrack cover. And this thing I can stare at for hours. And I will say, I found this in a $3 bin. Well, I should say I found it in a $5 bin. And it was a situation where, buy 3, $10. So I had 2 and I needed another one. So I will say it was the cover that made me bring this one home. And then on the back here, very faintly, is 10cc. There's their faces.
Okay.
And then it is, a gatefold, a whole process. And then there's the glove.
That they were talking about.
The glove.
Yeah. The front glove isn't so bad, but the back glove, it is weird. I did not know that was a glove until I saw the documentary. And then the inside. So I like this one a lot. That cover for sure. And then some of the other covers that they did that I liked is I have this one on CD. I just didn't grab it. Is the Umaguma cover. I do love that one. And then I like the Bad Company cover. I like the simplicity of the graphic of that. I am not a Bad Company fan, but I do like that. And then the XTC cover with this is an album cover.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. I'm not a big XTC fan, so I don't have that. I'm not a big fan of Andy Partridge's voice.
To go back on what I was saying about Peter Christopherson being involved with hypnosis, that's when it made sense with, and Steve is definitely familiar with this, is UFOs force it. But it's got, I guess it was a play off of the word faucet, and they got all these faucets in a bathtub. You got two people making out, and it's actually Genesis Peerage and Tutti Fanny from Throbbing Gristle, who is also with Peter Christopherson, their collective. So there's 3/4 of Throbbing Gristle involved in that one cover. So it made sense.
Yeah,
because I always try to figure out why those people were on that cover, why those two in particular were involved with hypnosis. So,
well, because I mean the titles force it, so
yeah,
and it's her on him. She's not wearing any pants.
And
right.
it's another one of those, like, the it's become censored now. Like, they shade out one.
Yep.
I forget which one, but they shade out one of them.
Both of them, actually. Yeah,
they're probably both right. Both of them. Yeah.
But just that, I always found it weird. It's just like, why do they pick those two people out of all, like, not just models? They were like part of this, well, probably the very first industrial band of those two, and now I know why, because Peter was involved. So, yes, right there.
Steve, I'm curious. You just did the UFO show. Of those, well, I guess like 5, but they ended up doing Hypnosis did, I think, No Place to Run, and then the following as well after Shanker left. Which one of those is your favorite from the cover art perspective?
From the UFO album covers, let's see. God, you know what? It's not. Wow, that is not a great group of albums to choose from. Like when I did my thing on UFO, even it's Strangers in the Night. I think that's a horrible album cover. You're laughing at Pie.
Well, I was laughing at Alex as well.
God, favorite? I guess my favorite would just have to be the first, because it's the only one that's a piece of art. I mean, at least I like it. The other ones are just kind of strange and weird. Lights Out isn't good. Obsession isn't good. No heavy petting. You got the monkey, and Force It is just, if you get the U.S. release of it, it's just, it's a translucent picture of the models, so you can't even really make it out. So yeah, I would say the first one. A lot of people think it's the debut. It's not the debut. It's just the first one that Hypnosis did. There you go.
What's funny, I was jokingly, but for real, putting this up because I love this from Phenomenon, what you're just talking about, but it is just so creepy. Like I love like the whole, like the house in the background, and then just like these random people start walking. It gives I think similar just in vibe of I guess it just got released for Record Store Day last year, the Van Halen Right Here Right Now cover, where it's just again just like it's just a house and then just a yard and then people. It just I don't know. It just has that vibe there. Yeah.
The Jesus statue in front,
Right.
Or is it or Mother Mary? I don't know. But yeah, I think that the movie was great. There was a lot of stuff I learned from it, which is, I guess, good for a documentary. I think that's what they're for, is to educate people overall. But yeah, I would definitely give that movie probably a A-. I think they could have gone was it about an hour 45? I guess.
Hold on, let me say something about the documentary. The one thing I like about the documentary too is most documentaries I normally always take with a grain of salt, because it's a lot of times a documentary going in, the person telling the story already has in their mind how they want this to end. It's going to follow the story they want to tell. And I didn't feel like that happened in this. So I don't know if you guys thought that, but
The other thing, real quick, with Anton Corbin, which I'm sure all you're familiar with, is at least photography, especially with U2. He's like, really big with them. I really liked how it was like 98% black and white. Yes. And I kind of figured that this was the reason why it was all in black and white. So when they showed the album covers, the art, and they made that in color, it just, kind of gives it the Wizard of Oz effect of, it really popping out. So cool.
wait,
Anyone
hold on
else
one second.
want to-
Wait, I still have one more thing, because the fact you said about the black and white, it made me think of it as I was watching it last night, that I do not want to see my rock stars in black and white, close up in high def film. None of them look particularly good. I get it; it's their age, but I don't think I needed such an intense close up. So there you go.
You mean like these? Where are they at? Like, the Metallica ones of the new album where they're super close up, black and white, showing their age.
Those are gritty photos.
Yes. So, shall we hit the next subject? Are we done with squaring the circle? Any more?
I believe we
Okay.
are.
All right.
But that was a good suggestion. Thanks, Trevor.
Well, it was just something different, and definitely within our wheelhouse. So I guess we're gonna go with songs that don't belong or don't fit in an album. So why don't we go ladies first?
Okay,
ahead,
so
your
I've
stuff.
got a couple, and I forgot to take the albums out of the plastic again. Something seemed to do that. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. All right. So I had mentioned last week The Who. My Wife Does Not Belong on this album. I like it. I like the song. I think it's very clever about some guy getting thrown in the drunk tank and his wife mistaking that he's out screwing another lady. But it doesn't go on this album. I don't think I'll get any arguments with that choice. That was the one that immediately came to mind when that topic was brought up.
Right on. Do you want to do all three, or should we do the roundabout?
I could do another. So I also brought up Waylon Jennings last week, and here he is again. So in the center here, it says, including We Had It All. So this is an album of songs all written by Billy Joe Shaver, except for this last track, We Had It All, which is this syrupy, sweet, it's awful. So the rest of this album, however, is great, and it's not the easiest to find, and it's pretty pricey. And then it just totally gets tanked by this last song, We Had It All. Ugh. Terrible.
Go ahead.
Anybody else want to go?
No, go ahead. Do your three, and then we'll.
Okay, do my. Oh, I got a couple. Okay, so
okay.
One, Joan Jett, the Black Hearts album. So this is an album that I picked up last week at the record show when I met up with Glenn. So I
Mhm.
was watching the channel as it should be this week, and they were ranking albums from 1980. And they had mentioned Joan Jett, and they had said, every one she does, she's always got this stupid 1950s remake song on it. And I thought about it, and I was like, they're right. So, and on this one, this is a great album. I think this is her and the Blackheart's best album. But on this one, she does Tossin' and Turnin', where the only other cover on here is Everyday People, which is a great cover. And the rest of the songs on here, she has co-written. And then she puts Tossin' and Turnin' on this album. So those are my 3 selections. I grabbed a couple others, but we won't get into them. And I see Alex has got, and I almost grabbed it, but I was like, no, we've talked about it before. So I'm glad you did, because I know what you're going to say.
I might be exiting in and out. I'm taking care of the dogs. I'm home by myself, so so I might jump out every so often. But yeah. So are you? You can do your other couple ones that you got if you want to.
So my other one is Crosby, Stills and Nash, "Lady of the Island." Such a shitty song. So on this album, Stephen Stills did everything in terms of instrumentation, except for drums and playing the acoustic guitar and Lady of the Island. Lady of the Island was done entirely by Graham Nash, and it's just this shitty ballad about him, waking up next to this woman. It's basically a song written, I think, to get women in bed. And I've read some Crosby, Stills, and Nash biographies, and my understanding is Graham Nash had no problem getting women in bed. So I don't even know why he included that shitty song on a record.
Anything else? Or...
Oh, and then I have this Johnny Cash album, Orange Blossom Special, in which he has 3 Dylan covers, which are great. And then he throws in Danny Boy.
All right. How about we give Steve the platform for the moment?
Well, first I need to know, Trevor, did you choose a song from Pink Floyd? No? Okay. Because we talked about this before. So, Money does not belong on here. Every other song is a very, trippy, ethereal, prog song. Money isn't. Yeah, it's a weird time signature. It's a 7/4 time signature, but other than that, that song does not belong on that album. And that's my favorite album of all time. All right. Rainbow Rising. Their best album by far. Do You Close Your Eyes? Ronnie James Dio sings about nothing but magicians, wizards, dragons, and here he's singing a song asking a girl if she closes her eyes when he's making love to her. It doesn't fit on the rest of this album. I mean, the other 5 songs are just epic songs, and no, I don't know what happened to him on that song. They must have just said, we need 4 more minutes. Whatever you got, let's try it. Houses of the Holy, The Crunch. Okay. It's kind of reggae. It's funky. It's a song I've never liked. I thought it was a throwaway song. Then when you look and see what ended up being on Physical Graffiti, how something from there couldn't have made it on this album instead, I don't get it. And then this is probably in my top 10 albums of all time. It would never be number 1. Number 1 is always Dark Side of the Moon. But this album, if you take off Maxwell's Silver Hammer and Octopus's Garden, you have not only their best album, but probably the second best album ever. I hate those songs. They're just musical nursery rhymes. Um, I I know everybody thinks the Beatles are genius. I do too, but I don't think it took a genius to write those two songs. So those are my 4 songs.
Cool. Well, I want to say about the you close your eyes. I'm sure Ronnie had to ask that because he wasn't at eye level with any woman anyway, so we had to ask. So, I say that as a true Ronnie James Dio fan. I love the man, and I'm sure he would laugh at that too. So, Alex, why don't you go ahead and show your 3 of songs that
Sure.
don't belong on an album?
Yeah, well, you probably saw my reaction. Do You Close Your Eyes is one of my sort of on the peripheral, like, yeah, that would be where this kind of falls in. So that's why I was like, oh, I know where he's going with that. But I will say, and Marcia, this might have come up earlier, and I'm sure it's been talked about. I guess this is like more of an obvious choice. But since it is one of Steve's top 3 favorite bands of all time, we'll give a little bit of time to Black Sabbath for things. So what's funny is I think the 2 that I'll show, it's a double shot. Most people probably know where I'm going with this one, but with Changes. And, it's funny. Because they got paid because of Big Mouth mostly, and how hugely popular and successful Big Mouth was, and having Changes be the sort of theme song to that, I'm sure was huge. But and otherwise, obviously, when you have things like Wheels of Confusion and Snowblind and Supernaut and all those, it's just okay, interesting. But they didn't stop there. They really didn't. And actually, I will say too, I don't mind like things like FX and sort of like the whole feedback thing. I know a lot of people bring up like Planet Caravan from Paranoid. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I think that's like has its place on that record. This A Lot of Days is my favorite Black Sabbath record, except for the one song, Am I Going Insane? That to me just takes what would otherwise be perfect and just I don't know. It just doesn't work for me. It doesn't fit. I mean, there's so much. I mean, some people say like between this and Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, this is like their quote unquote prog records, whatever that sort of means. But obviously, we're there doing a lot more. Where Ozzy was like full on like singing or trying to in the best way that he can on these. But to me, that always just completely brought that record down. And if it wasn't for that, it would probably be without a doubt my favorite. Trevor, you're the metalhead, right? You're the metalhead. We'll go a little bit heavier. My favorite Metallica records, Ride the Lightning. I don't hate the song. It just doesn't belong in talking about Escape. It just doesn't.
Hetfield would agree with you.
Yeah, right. And, I think that's probably not an unpopular opinion. But most days this is my favorite. And again, like that's just a song that comes up that I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? So, yeah, I mean, almost, it's almost like major. There's like some happiness to it. There's like, what are we? I don't know. That doesn't feel.
Well, see, I've always dug that song. Again, nostalgia wise, that was the latest album they had out when I discovered Metallica, and so I was 15 at the time, and those lyrics for a 15-year-old meant a lot to me, especially in the 80s, being the metal guy in the northern suburbs of Detroit. You got beat up for liking stuff like that or looking the part and stuff. So I mean, it is pretty simplistic. I think they were almost like trying to rate a radio hit, not hit, but radio friendly song. But the life's for my own to live my own way.
Yeah,
as a 15-year-old, it was perfect. So, but I get where in the grand scheme of that album, it doesn't fit completely.
Yeah, no.
But
Let's see. One of my favorite songwriters of all time. This is one of my favorite records of all time. I'm a huge Warren Zevon fan. I love Warren Zevon. I love this record. I like the previous one, his self-titled, a little bit more, but this is right up there. To me, nearly every single song is perfect or near perfect. It just, to me, when I was in high school, I think I heard the song. I know, everybody has heard Werewolves of London, and if all you know is Werewolves of London, please go and like listen to more stuff. That is on this record, and it's a great song, all the things. But off this record, I heard when I was in high school, I heard "Rollin' the Headless Thompson Gunner," and I was like, "This is one of the best songs I've ever heard in my life." I mean, there aren't a ton of people who are able to just tell a story in 4 minutes. I mean, tell an epic story in 4 minutes. And to me, I heard that and I thought that was one of the best songs ever. But listening to this, everything's great. Everything is great except "Nighttime in the Switching Yard," which is basically a disco song. Yes, it has Porcaro on drums, and that's great. But it is, granted, I think this record came out in '78, and so it is at the height of disco. And I'm sure it was fun at the time. To me, it's just a complete throwaway and doesn't belong, and nothing else on the record sounds like it. And it's just a bummer because to me, it's what keeps that from being a perfect record. Two more. This might be a shout out to Steve as well, but some days, many days, this is my favorite Emerson, Lake and Palmer record. They had like some other prog bands had like this way of throwing on something fun or whatever, boogie woogie, whatever it might be. I don't actually hate the song. It's fine for what it is. I don't hate people. I like looking at Steve smirk and he's like, "I love Benny." But it's like epic album cover, all the things, epic album name. I mean, people are like, brain salad surgery. What is going on? And then you have Benny the Bouncer, which is just this, I don't know, 2.5 minute bar boogie thing. Steve's entering the comments right now. He's holding it back. I know it's like a top 10 song for you. I get it. I'm sorry. It's great. And last thing, I don't know if anybody is punk fans at all. I'm not per se, but it is like, it's sort of like it's the genre I need to go into more. I'm very on like the outskirts of it, right? Like I'd be like, "Ooh, I love punk. I have London Calling." But going to this record, Combat Rap by The Clash, I was actually listening to this the other day and wasn't hugely familiar with it. And I was like, great, you know the hits, the other stuff, it's fine. And then it came to the very, very, very last track on the record itself called "Death is a Star." And it's like this, you would play that song to 1,000 people who were unfamiliar with this record, and no one would ever claim or even imagine it was The Clash. It's jazzy, it's ethereal, it's very odd, it's very vaudeville, it's all over the place. And so I say this I actually love the song. As soon as I heard it, I was like, this is amazing, but really doesn't fit or has no place on this record at all. So yeah, those are my 5, I guess.
Cool. So real quick, that Warren Zevon, Marsha, wasn't that like the subject of that the podcast that you were recommending? The I really wish I could remember what the name of that podcast is. They usually focus on one record. What was it?
Discord and Rhyme.
That's it. Yeah. Was it? Didn't they do that this week?
Yeah, that was their episode this week. I haven't listened to it. Alex, I am trying to get into Warren Zevon. I have the debut album and I think it is fabulous. I picked up Excitable Boy a couple months ago. I actually showed it on here. And I just found it to be kind of uneven because Lawyers, Guns, and Money is great. But that's awesome songwriting. But I just think maybe his voice necessarily maybe isn't for me. I don't.
It's
There's
funny because
something. I want something more. I'm not sure what it is.
no, that's a great point. He's not a great singer. I mean, like I say that of like, but that's not like an insult, right? Like I don't think he has the pipes of so many others, but yeah, I can definitely see that. I'm really glad that you like the self-titled. Yeah, I talk about all the time, like when people ask the impossible question of like, what's your favorite song of all time? My favorite song of all time, without a doubt, above everything else, is Desperados Under the Eaves,
Yeah.
which closes out that self-titled. So, and for any of the Warren Zevon people who watch it later, theoretically, or not even theoretically, technically, that self-titled from '76 that we're sort of talking about was not his debut. I always think about it. He did a debut in the late '60s that was not great and not really representative. I'd compare it to like David Bowie's debut, like how he sort of like disowned his actual debut, and he's like, that wasn't really my thing. We can look at this as the debut. But yeah, I totally understand that it's not for everybody.
Wasn't he like in a duo at one time where?
Well, he was between like his debut that he released in Europe in like '69 all the way up till '76. He was the musical director for the Everly Brothers.
I am a huge Everly Brothers fan. I'm very well aware.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think like that lends context, I think, to his compositions, and like it's.
But I thought he was in a duo because he's got a song on Nuggets album, doesn't he? From back in his psychedelic days.
Not sure.
Or am I just talking out of my ass? I very well
could be both, Yeah, not sure. I'd be curious on that.
All right. I guess my turn.
Steve? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess I'll. Or are you done, Alex? Or you got anything?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. We were talking about this before. I want to say it was like, I don't know, first live stream we did this. Sorry, my dog is wanting. Hi, this is Hendrix.
Oh, Hendrix.
He's still a puppy. Annoying puppy. But I was trying to rack my brain on trying to come up with some new ones, but I'll go back to one that I talked about before. This is Ministry, Psalm 69. Really heavy album. All these are going to be heavy metal albums, but this one's more in the industrial realm. And everything's dark and brutal. And in the middle of it, there's a song called Jesus Built My Hot Rod, which is like still industrial, but it almost has a rockabilly feel to it. And it would really lend itself. Yeah, it would. And it's got Gibby Haynes from Butthole Surfers doing the vocals. And it would probably, and I said this back in the day when this was 30 years ago, this probably would have been better as one of Al Jurgensen's side projects known as Revolting Cocks, which has more of a humor element to it. That probably would have fit better, but for some reason they stuck it on a Ministry album. But you're saying about Warren Zevon kind of having his debut album and kind of disowning it and going away with it. Speaking of Ministry, it just reminded me, Al Jurgensen put this out in 1983. This is a pure synth pop record in the like almost in the vein of Human League, and he really disowned it. Every time this would get brought up, he would label this album as an abortion. That's how much he hated this record. If anyone came up to him to get it autographed, he would like grab it and throw it. But the thing is, it's really cool. Ministry is out on tour right now with Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And to the jaw-dropping surprise to all of us Ministry fans, he is doing the song Revenge off of this album, which we all freaked out when, people, doing their iPhone recording of it live. And
why stop there? They should do the whole album in its entirety. That's what everybody does these days.
There's a rumor going around that they might do a re-record, which I'm fine with. A lot of times I don't like it when bands re-record an album. And sometimes I know it's just for publishing, so they could like use it in a commercial or something. That I know Cheap Trick did that a while back with some of their big songs, because I think like in Guardians of the Galaxy they redid Surrender. It almost sounds identical to the original, but that recording they get all the publishing for. But yeah, I think that that would be a good thing to re-record. Next is, man, there's a lot of Ozzy in this episode with all the Black Sabbath stuff. But from Ozzy's debut, Blizzard of Oz, I mean, this would be a damn near perfect record if it wasn't for No Bone Movies on here. I have, to this day, I have no idea what the hell he's talking about in this, but it's just a rock and roll song, and it just doesn't fit with the darkness that's amongst this record, but still a great one. Not as good as Diary of a Madman, but still a really good record. And then finally, this one's going to be the silliest of them all. From 1989, thrash guys, Exodus. The thrash scene in the 80s, they were very much aligned with kind of the punk scene in talking about world problems, pollution and government and all that stuff. And, these guys were in with that also. But the big hit off this record is a song called The Toxic Waltz, which is basically a song about slam dancing and moshing. So, and that actually got so big that MTV would play it like during the day, which was really weird. So, actually saw them twice on this tour. So that's my third and last one. Exciting, huh?
They're killing it still.
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
I've been. It's interesting seeing. I guess segue because of what like Kirk Hammett and starting an Exodus and all that stuff, but like it's fascinating seeing, which is great. Like Metallica out here selling out like 80,000 seat like stadiums and all those different things. Like love that. I think it's great for them. It's great for the genre. It's great. It's great for everything. And recognize too, like there are so many of those sort of classic 80s thrash bands that are cranking out like records that are so strong still to this day, that are just brutally awesome. Excess is one of them. I think Testament's another one. Everything they put out has just been great.
I missed there was I think it was like the Bay Area Attack tour that took place the last couple of years, and I missed.
Yeah, I went to that here in Columbus. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
It was Exodus, Testament, I think Death Angel. Yeah.
I really want, and I think especially Death Angel. I mean, their albums the last 10 years have been better than the original ones, and no slack on the original ones, but they're just better sounding, better written, all together. So
for sure.
Cool. Right on. So shall we go on to cleaning accessories?
I do want to check in with Steve. He still didn't say anything about Benny the Bouncer.
Oh, here.
I did. I said 73 was a good year for Benny and the Jets. So
Benny was my grandfather's name. So yeah, I'll like that.
Yeah, and I hate Benny and the Jets. So.
All right. Hey, Mickey's in. Yeah. Sorry. We also switched channels, so sorry,
Yeah.
Mickey. But
So did Steve
glad
do
you're
his,
here.
or have I totally erased that from my
Yeah,
memory?
he did. He started with money.
That's right. God damn it. Sorry,
Yeah,
Steve.
which kind of was the initial thing when we first did it a few months ago. That I think it was Brian, the embiotic robot. He brought that up, like, and money being the big example of, a song that just doesn't fit the rest of the record. So, let's see. Well, who wants to go first on accessories?
Somebody else can. I need to refill my drink. I will be back in 10 seconds.
Okay. Well,
Well, I'm quick because I know a lot of people, or people out there might have like Humming Guru, or they might have like the yellow, the spin clean, like all those different things. I think I had a spin clean for a minute. I think I still do. It's back in a closet somewhere. For me, it sounds like really basic, but whatever. For me, I just do distilled water and then like microfiber cloths. And so like I drop like a bigger cloth on the counter and then take another cloth, spray on the distilled water, and then wipe from there. So I know I don't use any sort of I know a lot of people bring up like certain like alcohol, like all those different things, like people put like beer on it. I'm kidding, that's a joke. But like I literally just do distilled water in like a spray thing and then a microfiber cloth or two. And I found that has been great. But I also recognize too of like typically the records that I'm cleaning, like they're not like a lot of times like we have a local place here in Columbus that every Monday they have throughout the week they have a $5 rack. And then on Mondays they're all those $5 records are $1. So like I go there and basically like pad the collection, right? It's like the ones that I'm like, you know what, I've never really gotten into this band, but like it's $1, I might as well grab it, like that type of stuff.
Right.
But like those are typically sometimes a lot of, they're beat up, they're dirty, they got wrecked covers, all those different things. And so like I'm not buying those for like an audiophile experience.
Right.
And fully recognizing that. So that's why I'm so like just I guess low maintenance in that category, and that's all I really use on my end.
I wish I had a place around here that sold $5 records for $1.
Right.
Oh, and I have found maybe that's a video. Maybe I can highlight them and say like, here's all these records I've bought for them for $1. Well, because a lot of times it's like, the vinyl will be in great shape, but the cover has like Sharpie written all over it. But then another time it's the reverse, where it's like the cover is perfect, but like the record has Sharpie all over it. So a lot of times I'll buy two and just swap them, and then I'm set. So, but I've found some really great like records there that are far exceed the value of $1. Like I think I have an original Maggot Brain from Funkadelic that I got out of a $1 bin.
What? That is
like
a hard to find record.
It's beat like crazy, but like no skips, no loops. It's just beat. But I was like, and this was 3 years ago, so this wasn't like in the early 2000s when nobody was buying records. So yeah, I'm a bit of a crate digger in that way. So
I have a lot of busted album covers, so I get it.
Do you? Sorry to question for you, Marcia, though. Like, or I guess for all of you, like, it always matters, but like from a standpoint of like when you go to a record store and buy a record, like, obviously you don't want to buy a trashed cover for $100, but like, how much does the cover condition matter to you in terms of when you're buying like a record at like a discount or something like that?
Let me go grab something.
She goes, let me show you, sir. Okay.
Okay. I guess I would be kind of shallow in that because, I'm I will fall under the, judging the book by its cover, literally type thing.
Yeah.
Like I've brought this up a few times on my channel. There's a local store here in Tacoma, the biggest one in there, so I won't name them. And they got a great selection, but they're used. I mean, the one album I was looking for just to see if I can get it cheap was my favorite Aerosmith album is Rocks. And they had probably 25 to 30 used copies there. And it ranged anywhere from like $14 to $25 used. And it was, with the condition, obviously the better condition, the higher the price. And it just enraged me because I'm like, well, shit, if the best used copy was $25, I might as well pay another $1 or $2 more and buy a brand new one, and not have to worry about it. But yeah, like Steve said, also depends on the artist and how much want the album. I get that.
Well, and Trevor, follow up for you. I mean, your specialty, like you are a lot of metal and a lot of stuff that's harder to find used for a good price in stores anyway. So my guess is that I'm making assumptions here, but like that you probably buy a lot more new things just given probably the type of music that you're into. I mean, because what is it to find like a first press of like the Exodus debut? I mean, that's a $200 or $300 record on Combat or whatever.
Yeah, I have no worries of buying a reissue. In fact, I bought Bonded by Blood as a reissue. It was like $35. That version of it's going for $150 now, but so yes, I like to look up my Discogs, or Discogs porn, as some people would put it. Just to see what things are going for. Not that I plan on selling, but yeah. Reissues are fine, but go ahead, Steve.
Oh, I was going to say, I'll go ahead. Okay, you were talking about the Humming Guru, Alex. I have that. I also have that yellow plastic. What's that thing called? Spin.
I think it's like the Spin Clean or whatever.
Yeah, Spin Clean. That's it. Okay. So, depending upon the shape of the album, I'll take that. I'll use it just to get off the surface crap. Okay. Then I'll put it in the Humming Guru to give it a good clean. Now it depends upon the incoming shape of it. Where I bought it, and if it's new vinyl, I don't need to clean it that heavily. It just depends upon, like I say, the condition of the album. But as far as other cleaning stuff, I have this box that I keep on top of my. Thank you, Glenn Calloway, the nice CD player you gave me. I keep that this on top of that. But it's actually when I was at Miles Kennedy's manager's house, we were going over a couple of projects, and he had like 5 or 6 of these in his garage. And I said, "What are those from?" And he says, the record company ran like a couple dozen of these for Miles to give to friends and family, and because the album was Year of the Tiger, and that's a tiger there. And he said they sent them out also to radio stations and promoters. It had the album in it and some other goodies, but I just use it for storage. And so I have my Zero Stat. Anybody else use a Zero Stat? No. This, I would say, this is essential to have from Momilla. Familiar with it? It's a little, comes in this, and that is almost like a gelatin, and you just put your needle down on top of it. It's amazing how much dirt it grabs off of your needle. I love this thing. Then I have a little brush to run over to, and got my stylus cleaner. What else I got? I've got my replacement brushes for my spin clean. And oh, and then I just got a microfiber cloth if I need it. And I think that's it. Yeah, I use all that kind of stuff. So, all right.
Well,
Let me mute here so you can go ahead.
just to know, Stevie's so casually talking about hanging out at Miles Kennedy's manager's house as if, you're like, oh, yeah, he invited me over for, barbecue, and I just happened to be around. I mean, any more stories?
So,
I don't know. Was
yeah,
that the case? Was that the case, Alex? Did everybody else have Alex breaking up, or is that just on my end?
No, he was.
I could catch about every other word.
Oh, well, apologies. Can you hear me better now?
Oh yeah.
Oh, great. Well, I just didn't know Steve out here was sharing stories about hanging out at like Miles Kennedy's manager's house and barbecuing and just, living it up or whatever. Didn't know if that was just like a normal thing for Steve or, what else he does. But actually, I will say that the jelly stuff, I forget the company you just mentioned, but I think that's a great point. I mean, a lot of people, we spend so much time thinking about cleaning our records, but the joke is our stylus is probably the nastiest. It's probably got so much like nasty gunk on it. So those have been, every time I clean my stylus, I notice a difference.
So I have one of these, and it's more like, it's got like a texture like silly putty. And in the center, it's just brown from me tapping my needle on it. So I actually pulled it out and flipped it over because I don't know how to clean this to keep reusing it.
I run it underwater. I run it underwater, Marcia. Yep.
Okay.
So do you have?
But you're right. I have. Pardon?
Do you have like brushes or anything else?
Yeah, I have this, and then I have. When I first started getting vinyl, I bought this kit. So I have, I have a brush, but I use this stuff, which I like cleaning my records by hand. I find it very therapeutic. Like I don't want a machine. I just, like doing this. So I get this off of Amazon, and this will probably last me 9 months, this entire bottle. Okay. And it comes with a little chamois in the cap when you get it. So you don't have to keep worrying about like, where did my microfiber cloth go? Because every time you buy it, you get it. So when I wash my records, like the bad ones I get, and I get a lot of bad records, I was told to just, do distilled water to rinse them first and then go back with the cleaner.
Okay.
So, and this works great for me.
Nice.
And I just don't have the space to really take up more room in my condo with another piece of equipment.
I know that feeling. So, anything else?
Well, getting back to what Alex had said about covers. So I picked this up at the record show with Glenn last week. This Flamin' Groovies record.
Mm-hmm.
And this cover is in horrendous shape. It's got water damage down here. It's, split. The corners.
Oh, not the flap. It's got the flap.
Creased. Yeah, it's not great. Record's in good condition. I've already played it. I've already listened to it. There's no skips, nothing like that. The cheapest this goes on Discogs right now is $38 without a cover, and I got it for less than that.
Yeah.
So I would have never been
sense.
able to afford this record if I didn't get a copy that had a busted cover. So sometimes I'll take busted covers. My Electric Warrior that I have pulled here, This is probably the worst looking cover in my collection.
Well, before you even show, well, that I mean that record's notorious for ring wear just based on the color of it anyway. But well,
Right. But you could see like how wavy it is right here. I'll pull it out. It's bad.
oh yeah,
It's really bad. This was $2.
I mean, come on, that's a great. Yeah,
Yeah.
you buy it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The record is perfect. So somebody who ever got this wet probably had a different record in this jacket at the time, because there's not a mark on the vinyl itself. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, hell, I'll take it for $2. I'll take the risk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's so funny. This is probably an unpopular opinion. Well, actually, hey, before I go into that, Marsha, how do you like that Flamin' Groovies record?
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
Yeah,
they're one of those bands that's on like the outskirts that I've never owned anything of, and I'm like,
Oh,
I gotta
really?
get into
Okay.
them. I gotta explore them. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Is that their
very
debut?
garagey. No, this is their third album. I have another one, funny enough, that I got. It's a record store day release, and I got it used the same day that I got another record store day used record that I also picked up another record by that artist the same day. I have yet to do a video about my record store pickups, which I want to do, but it'll make more sense when I maybe do that video. But this is their third record, and then they broke up, and then they got back together in the mid-70s and became a power pop band.
Gotcha.
So their first oh, sorry, Steve. Go ahead, Steve, and I'll just look this up and get round back to Alex.
Okay. I went up to my new local record store today, and I got this for $1 in the dollar bin. That's Linda Ronstadt, the Stone Ponies. First time I've come across it in the wild. I mean, you can make out the type on the spine, but the fact that I was able to get it for $1, I mean, it's not that bad. I mean, it's got that little bit of, that's broken away from the cover, but other than that, I mean, yeah, it's faded out and hard to make out exactly what it is, but I was thrilled to get this for $1. So this was not a bad find today at all.
Well, and the reality is with record stores and why the whole dollar thing that I go to, which I admit I will say, like, I'm pretty spoiled here in Columbus with the record stores. I mean, I will scream from the rooftops about how much I love nearly every single store here for different reasons. With that comes, the competition of pricing. I mean, they know. I mean, we have a place here in Columbus that's a couple, maybe a mile or two north of OSU's campus, where there is 5 record stores of equal, like badassery, for lack of a better term, within 2 square miles. And so it's one of those things of like, if you go to one, you go to all of them. And so what that causes is, I mean, they know that their stuff is going to be priced similar to next door. And in that case, like, the competition makes it better. But the reality is, a lot of times these stores are mom and pop shops where they have 2 or 3 or maybe 4 employees. They get in a massive collection, and in that collection is a set of 100, 200, 300 records that they just glance through and say, it's a lot of, I mean, I actually really like Dan Fogelberg, so this is not an insult on Dan Fogelberg, but it's a lot of like Dan Fogelberg and Firefall and like those types of records. And they just say, we don't have time to catalog these. We don't have time to price these. Throw them all in the $5, throw them all in the dollar bin. And so that's, the way, the way it works. Steve, look, maybe this will be my other video. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to think of all these ideas of videos to post and never actually post one. But one of them is this, this vinyl community thing of we have, as a community, I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to include myself in this, of like, we have defined artistic quality based on how rare they are and how expensive they are. I'm not actually calling you out, Steve, but we have really gotten to this point where it's like, if you can find it in a dollar bin, it's not worth it. Like, what do you mean? Like, that record's
would
not
agree
worth your
with you.
time if you can find it for $1 or whatever. Yeah, I mean, so that's one of those things where, as Glenn sort of put out of, you don't play the cover. I agree. I actually think this might be unpopular too. There's a ton of records I have where, it's like back in the day, people who are like Steve's age, love you, Steve. You'd go to your friend's place and be listening to your Kiss records on, late at night. You'd be sitting there with your love gun with your little thing going on, and you'd have to write, all the world's a stage. All the world's a stage. I'm Steve. On your record. My thing, that's fascinating, Marcia. That there, this might be a little bit
love
existential.
shit
Level.
like this.
I love shit like this. It
Yeah.
like, to me, it plays a role in the story of the record and where it's been, and I now have a place in that story.
Yes, I mean, Susan
great.
loved, like, Susan wouldn't have put this on here if she didn't love her goddamn Exile of Main Street and wanted to hold on to it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
in
a
this
hard
thing, it follows you wherever you go. You see Susan.
And here's the thing, Marcia, that record, a VG Plus or a very good condition Exile on Main Street with a great cover is a 50, 60, 70, sometimes $80 to $100 record. Especially if it has all the goodies on the inside.
This
you
one
can't tell me
doesn't.
that you
This
don't. If the vinyl's in great shape and that was discounted, bye.
Yeah, I paid $8 for this.
Oh,
and
that's
I have it. I have it on CD, so I don't need a $70 copy of this. An $8 copy is fine.
That's a tough record to find for that much. Uh-oh, Steve's got something. Everybody mute. Everybody mute.
All right, I'm muting myself, Steve.
Steve didn't unmute. We all muted, but Steve didn't unmute.
I'm sorry. Okay, the thing I've never understood about people writing names on album covers is, now this is what I did when I would go to a party and bring an actual physical LP. I would write my name here, inside. Why not just do that? Why do you have to deface a piece of art?
I am going to log and go get something really quick for show and tell. Be right back.
Well, speaking of Beto, actually, I didn't buy this one. I pilfered this from my late uncle many years ago before he was late. But I mean, this is Kiss Destroyer, which is kind of aptly titled because this record is completely destroyed. Splitting everywhere. The opening here, and there's no inner sleeve. It's scratched to all hell. It's got the original label on there, but that's another nostalgia thing, and it just sentimental wise. That's why I have it. So
this is, and Trevor, I mean, that's the thing especially Kiss stuff, like, the Kiss fans, I'm one of them, but not like that. But I mean, Kiss fans will spend, especially if those records got the inners and the stickers and the promo. Like, I mean, they will spend an absurd amount of money on those things. Right. And so yeah, it's like if you go to a place and buy something at a discount, and then go to a different place and buy a different thing at a discount, and you're able to swap those two things and make a package that works. I mean, why not?
Well, yeah, Frankensteining is a big thing in the used.
Oh, for sure.
Sector.
This is one of my Marsha, this goes to your point of like, I love this shit. I always remember you saying that. So I remember I was going through the dollar bin at a local place, and this is one of those artists. I will say I showed iRobot earlier for the album art. But Alan Parsons Project, this is Eye in the Sky. One of these, I think, very, the more popular one, but I think this is popular because the title track was used as like the Chicago Bulls intro theme throughout the 90s, where Steve is like, he's probably heard the a bang bang bang, a bang bang bang, a bang bang bang, a bang bang bang, right? It's great. Other than that, I think just from a production standpoint, I mean, shocker, Alan Parsons knows what he's doing from a production standpoint. But I buy this for $1. It was in great shape. You know, it was one of those things of like, there's nothing wrong with the cover. There's nothing wrong with the record. There's nothing going on. I take it home. I'm doing some cleaning. I reach inside the sleeve and I pull out 3 pages of handwritten notes. Scratch that, 4 pages of a handwritten note. I won't bore you with exactly all of the things that's in here, although it is pretty poetic. But basically, it's a divorce letter.
Oh.
And it's made out to Bob. And it's very much like this individual, this couple, was using this record and specifically in this letter was referring to quote unquote the eye in the sky as like the theme for why they were divorcing and separating. Of course, he was like an alcoholic and he's drinking too much and he's terrible to the kids and all those things. But like I mean, when I got this originally, I was like, this is creepy. This is really weird. I don't like this. And then I was thinking, you know, this is creepy. This is really weird. I think I like this. Like I was like, what is going on? And so of course, like back to the thing, like this is somebody's story that is like written completely into the inners of this record. I'm keeping it. I think it's great. I love it. I love this type of stuff. And yeah, why not?
Yeah, I like names on the covers. It doesn't bother me at all. I like to know that somebody liked that album before, and I'm glad to have it because if they didn't care about it, they wouldn't have put their name on it. So it just, you know, I like that kind of stuff. I was going to ask, Alex, do you have an Instagram? Can you take photos of each 4 of those pages and put them on?
Yeah, block out the names.
Well, you know, what's funny is like the story with it is like, I mean, we did some pretty, I think I bought this like literally in the height of COVID. And so my little sister and I, she was visiting at the time when I bought the record. We did some pretty in-depth, like investigative journalism of like trying to figure out, we're like, who's Bob? Do you think there's any Bobs that live in Columbus, Ohio ever? You know, of course. It was definitely like okay, like I'll say that like this is terrible, but when I was first reading it and like the content of it, I thought it was a suicide note. Like it was so like this person went in and was like, Bob, you treat me awful. I have nothing to live for. The kids are off doing their own thing. I was like, oh my God, now I feel really creepy. But then towards the end of it, you're like, oh, they're just divorcing. It's fine. Like what was interesting is it's all in cursive and it gets, the handwriting gets more and more sloppy as it like continues. And so like it's really legible in the beginning, the first 2 pages, and then towards the end it gets a little bit harder to read. Yeah, we'll scan that and send it out, and it'll be great. I mean, it's like Edgar Allan Poe. I mean, it's just great nighttime reading for people to enjoy. Yeah, I'll do that for sure.
Well, I guess I'll do my little quick show and tell. I think everything that got mentioned, except for the humming guru, this is what we were talking about a lot earlier, was spin clean. I use this just a lot on my old records that I haven't really cleaned yet. I remember my maiden voyage with this. I had a used copy of Volume 4, and it brought it back to life. So
you're able to list the changes really clearly, right?
Absolutely. And FX, you know. So I do like this one a lot. And then usually if I get a brand new record, yeah, there's still, dust and stuff. I usually just use a combo of this boundless spray, and like Marcia said, this will last me like anywhere from 9 to 12 months with just a regular microfiber brush for cleaning. And then just before I throw on a record, just the carbon fiber brush. It's supposed to be anti-static. I would like to get like the anti-static gun, but right now I just can't pull the trigger on literally, literally and figuratively. The anti-static gun. I'd like that a lot. Along with this combination, I don't have that putty or gel for the needles. I got the brush that came with it, so you just want to do a quick
okay.
once over. I mean, it does all right, but I'm sure that gel. Yes, Hendrix.
I find this takes care of all the anesthetic with my records, with my new ones. If I hit it with this
Okay.
on both sides, I have no problem with it.
Well, and also, I mean, Trevor, I'm guessing too, like, at least from my perspective, it's been more, I mean, I know, like, people have the higher level people in the VC have done a ton of videos about, like, why you need to clean brand new records and all those different things. And there are some of them that, like, when you pull them out of, like, whatever inner they're in, like, they do look filthy and they have paper on them and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I've more noticed from new records, it's a static issue. It's more of like those very high staticky pops than necessarily pops or anything like that from dirt or from paper or from scuffing or anything like that.
Well, I remember my very first VC video. I mean, I had a channel, but I barely put anything on it. But very first vinyl video I did, it was a record store day haul. And I got Primus Suck on This, their debut, even though it was a live album. And I was unpackaging it, and it took me at least a good 45 seconds to pull the record out of the inner sleeve. That's how staticky it was. It was horrible.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Also, shout out to Vinyl Den. Is that Nick? Is that you? Like,
it is Nick.
Fowler, the person.
Another Michigander.
I was gonna say another Michigan. I mean, he's a big deal. Like when I was talking like the high end of the VC community, that's Nick. Yup. I mean that wholehearted. Nick, I've been a follower of the channel and a member of the Facebook page forever. It's just really cool to see you here and supporting all kind of stuff. It's good stuff.
Right on. Yeah, Nick's a good guy. Ian. I haven't seen Ian in a couple weeks, or actually, well, I didn't see today's video. So, I'm sorry. Did I stop petting you?
Well, Nick's he's under a lot of stress right now because I think before the stream he made a post that Taylor Swift's 1989 was the best pop record of the 2000s, and so I'm thinking me and Rob from Northern Revolutions might have to do a video on that and see, because I am a Swiftie. So yeah, but good stuff there.
Right on. Let's see. I stand by that. But yeah, so that's my cleaning stuff. What else we got?
So I'm being pestered by a very needy animal right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I got this guy right here. 120-pound puppy. And then also we got, I know this says, see? And then
we'll say,
pretty.
I will say, Steve, I was really glad to hear the dog was okay. I'm very glad to hear that you're okay. But like we all know, like pets and then people, like It's like, we need to make sure, like, are the pets okay? Great. Now let's check on the people. But no, seriously, just glad to hear that both of you are doing fine and all that stuff. So I know that can be
Yeah,
scary.
how are you feeling?
I'm fine now. I was sore for probably 2-3 days, but yeah, I mean, the guy just, he barreled right through a yield sign and hit me. That pushed me into a utility pole. There's actually a funny part to this story. I get out of the car first, and a woman comes running out, screaming, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, I'm fine. But actually, what she was doing was running to the car that hit me, because that was her husband that was in that car. Okay. This happened right in front of their house. Okay. So not only did he have the indignity of, it was his fault, but all the neighbors saw it. I mean, because this was 6 o'clock on a, Wednesday night. So pretty much everybody's home from work now at this point. So, police come, make sure everybody was okay. I told him, I said, you know what? I've got my dog in my car. I'm trying to pick up my wife from the train station. I said, I think I'm fine. I said, you tell me. And we looked at, I had shorts on and looked at my legs, and my legs were already really bruised. And he says, if you don't want to go to emergency, you just need to sign off. He says, but you have 24 hours to do so on your own if you want. And I said, okay, that's fine. So I tried going later that night, and it was a 4 to 5 hour wait. I said, screw it, I'll just come back in the morning. Hopefully it's not as bad then. So I did actually go see my doctor Thursday morning. They took x-rays, nothing broken, just bruised badly. So problem is, got a new car and the dog won't get in it. So that's it. Other than that, yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. So
Well, yeah, as we're all saying, yeah, glad you're all right. Glad the dog's all right, except for getting into the new car. I'm sure it'll take a minute for her to get used to that. But all right.
Any
So
final show and tell?
well, let's see. Because I made it known I haven't really bought a lot because I have 2 major trips coming up in the future here. So that was my
I
money
know of
saving thing.
one.
Was
What's
not,
the other?
which one did you know of?
The trip to London.
Yeah, we're doing Scotland, London, but next month at the end of October we're going to Disneyland the weekend right before Halloween.
Oh, well, that'll be fun and very pricey.
Again, that's why I'm not spending money on records, but I
Yeah.
had to. I don't know if anyone caught my very first interview yesterday, but the band Love Interest. This is a 4-song EP. One of my best friends is the bass player in this outfit. 6-piece, kind of a goth post-punk type stuff. If you like The Cure, early Cult, the Chameleons, highly recommend it. So that's my show and tell of recent finds. Not finds, but that's what I got.
okay, I need to know, Alex, did you pre-order Codex?
So go ahead and mute, Steve. Steve, can you mute? So I've not pre-ordered it yet because I'm waiting. Here's the thing: I got the email, and I'm a sucker for pre-order and spend $10 extra and get an autograph or whatever. It's like at this point I have like 2 or 3 of Steven Wilson autographs for whatever reason. Like, why do I need more than one? It doesn't matter. And so when we got the email, it had them of like autographed. And so I went to pre-order it, but then it didn't say anything on there for like, I think like the special vinyl version, at least for like US customers, is like the Coke bottle or whatever, like color variant. So I did not pre-order yet because my assumption is that there's going to be some sort of indie store exclusive something that I'll be able to get without paying for like shipping or something like that. I will say I did listen a couple of times to Economies of Scale, and I'm looking forward to whatever's supposed to drop, I think on Tuesday. Like we said, he does whatever he wants. I think a lot of like the people who are expecting him to do the Raven Part 2, like that's not who he is anymore. I'm not, he's really obviously leaning in big time to this electronica thing and has been for a while, which I appreciate. I'm not like wildly in love with the new track. I appreciate what it is though. And so I'm looking forward because I guess this, whatever he's supposed to release on Tuesday, what is it, like the Impossible Tightrope or something like that, I think it's called, is supposed to be like this 11-minute jazzy, proggy electronica thing. I'll buy it. I'll own it. I'm sure I'll love it. But yeah, I hope he comes in tours. I've never seen him live. So that would be my thing, is I just want him to come to the States and tour. So
I did pre-order it. I haven't heard anything because there's certain artists I just want to be surprised by it when I get it. I just want to hear it for the first time in its entirety. So I've stayed away from listening to anything. Yeah, I mean, I don't need the Raven Part 2. I'd be happy with Hand Cannot Erase or To the Bone Part 2. Future Bites, I was all right with it. It's not his best album. I think that's a universal appraisal of that album. But I have seen him I did see him on the Raven tour, and I saw him on the To the Bone tour. So yes.
Well, and good thing you mentioned that too. I mean, because it's interesting. He's releasing these singles while simultaneously also saying, like, when you listen to this record, you need to listen to the record. Like, you need to listen to it from start to finish, not individually, all those things. And so I totally respect that approach. One thing I'll add to this from like the new things happening. I went to one of my local shops over the weekend. I guess it was like Friday. And, it was like one of those, I don't know if this has happened to you all, but if you've ever walked into a store and, hopefully they're playing something on like, whatever record player they have. And as soon as I heard it, I had like one of those like, oh my God moments. I was like, what is this? Like I was sucked in immediately where I was like, I don't know this artist. It sounds like a million artists I love. Like, what is this? What is this? And so immediately I asked the people behind the counter, I was like, what are we listening to? And they're like, it just came out today. It's the Swedish band. Steve, I'm going to send this your way because I feel like this is something you're into. I feel like we're in this really great, almost like renaissance of like power pop, like big star / like, kind of glammy stuff, obviously with the Midnight Callers and the album they put out this year. But they were playing this record, and the first thing I heard, I was like, this sounds like Ian Hunter Mata Hoople, like to the max mixed with Big Star. Like, what are we listening to? The band is called the Velvet Insane. They're from Sweden, and the record is High Heeled Monster. And I literally bought it off the turntable. I was like, what is this? I need this. Interestingly enough, I don't know if it was just this record store or how limited it is. The record I bought is still not even listed in Discogs. I think it is like one of these, like, we got this import in. It might be a smaller band, but I was blown away. Yeah. So the name of the band is Velvet Insane. Record is High Heeled Monster.
Yeah, I had a similar experience in June when my daughter took me out for Father's Day. we went to that same record store where I talked about the Aerosmith Rocks records, but they played something in store that was kind of, it sounded like early 70s um, soundtrack music mixed with a bit of trip hop to it. And they didn't have any other copy than the one that they were playing. Now, having worked in a record store for many years, the rule of thumb was you don't play anything that you don't have in stock. So,
And people still break that rule, by the way.
well, case in point, right there, because I'm
Yeah.
like, if they would have had one in stock, because I don't want to take their copy of it, because I mean, as far as I know, that was their copy. I didn't want to buy theirs, but I would have picked it up if they had it in stock. So I don't know why they played it in the first place. So that was kind of disappointing. And I really wish I would have remembered the name of the group. And that's where I need to get better with, just putting in my notes in my phone, when I hear stuff like that.
So I had the same situation a couple of months ago. And I was like, this is great. What is this? Oh, this is from our private collection. Really?
Mhm.
It's in Discogs now. But they gave me the name and everything, and then they gave me an album because they felt bad.
Nice.
Now, I mean, it wasn't a very expensive one, but I was kind of like, come on now.
But yeah, I mean, if usually in-store play is part of the selling element in a record store. So that's where I was, kind of disappointed with them in doing that. But I heard it, I liked it. I just wish I would have remembered who it was.
Well, it's like that's why you do it. Like, I was joking with them of like that's why you play the record. Like I was like, what? I was sucked completely into it. And Steve, just coming back to you, like I get more. It was funny when they started playing it. There was shocker. My musical tastes are more in line with people who are older than me. Someone's like, "Oh my god, it sounds like Sweet. Oh my god, it sounds like the New York Dolls. Oh my god, it sounds like this." To me, Steve, that first song I heard, I got. What'd you say, Marcia?
Then they sound like Hanoi Rocks.
That's funny. To me,
Who
Steve,
I love.
I got.
So I'm gonna love this.
I got big time golden age of rock and roll. Like that was like if golden age of rock and roll from Mott like was like a theme, I was like, this is what I just hear. Like huge backing vocals, like just definitely glam. New York Dolls, I think, is a good comparison, but with like a singer who's more accessible, right? That's always been kind of thing with New York Dolls. It's like, oh my gosh, like musically it's glam, but like vocally it's punk. Like, what are we doing? So, but yeah, I bought it and I've listened to it probably 4 or 5 times over the last couple of days since I've bought it. I haven't really heard much about them or what it is. And yeah, Marsha, I did see it's in Discogs under like a special like yellow transparent variant, but not like the other one. Or not like it's like a standard black vinyl or whatever. But yeah, feel free to stream it and see what you think and all that kind of stuff. And this is a never-ending world of people making musical recommendations.
Well, you got me sold.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Well, speaking of New York Dolls and another documentary, I forget which platform shows a lot of the Showtime product. It's either Hulu or
I think Hulu does a lot of Showtime.
Okay. Martin Scorsese did a documentary with David Johansen called Personality Crisis, One Night Only. And it is phenomenal. David Johansen he's in this little tiny club, kind of cabaret style. And he's got this kind of small jazz band behind him, and he kind of filters his stories through Buster Poindexter style.
I was gonna say, is this a Buster Poindexter 2.0?
Kinda, but and he explains why he's doing it that way, and it's really cool because he talks about the Dolls, he talks about his solo career, and he does these songs with this kind of jazzy band behind him. And of course, the last song is Personality Crisis. So there's another documentary I can highly recommend.
What is it called?
It's called Personality Crisis, One Night Only. And David Johansen.
You ever
Go ahead.
you ever see the documentary about Arthur Kane from the New York Dolls?
All Dolled Up?
Pardon me?
All Dolled Up.
Is that what it was called? I can't remember. I mean, he was the bass player in the New York Dolls. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's sad, tragic life. Yeah.
As most of the Dolls.
It looks like I can rent it on Amazon for $10. Maybe I can do a Showtime promotional. It's been a couple of years.
Right, there you go. Yeah, like I said, I can't remember if it's on Hulu or Paramount. We got more platforms than Olympic gold medal ceremonies. We did away with cable a while ago. So
This does look interesting, though.
yeah, it's really good. I mean,
he's got the John Waters mustache.
Yeah, I believe he gets brought up in the conversation too.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, it goes all over the place. So lots of archival footage, and I mean, I can't say I love the Dolls. I love the first record. Anything else beyond that, I don't really know, to be perfectly honest. But the impact that those guys made is undisputable.
I think that's I bet you that opinion is shared by probably more than most, Trevor, in terms of the influence of that first record. The whole like, oh, I own the first record, listen to it a lot, don't really care for much after that. I know they put on, they put out one a couple years after, the year after. I love that record, but it is one of those interesting aspects of like musically this feels like glam. It's like musically this feels like Sweet, or like Slade even, or a lot of those sort of those UK bands. And I understand, I'm fine with it and I'm good with it, but I understand how the vocals would turn people off, and how simultaneously it was American glam while also being sort of proto-punk, and sort of all the bands that came after that.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Ramones were hugely influenced by the Dolls, along with the Stooges. There's another band that the first album, definitely. Second album is up there. Beyond that, a lot of people don't really talk about the Dolls, or not the Dolls, the Stooges, beyond those first two records. MC5, another one.
Yeah.
They talk about the first record. They don't talk about High Times and Back in the USA a whole lot in the conversation.
It is interesting, Steve. I'd love your. I know we're up on time, and usually 2 hours is the thing. I want to give another shout out to Steve, though, just because he's been really supportive and has asked me a million times when I'm starting a channel. So I'm cheersing the final beverage tonight to him, which is the Rush Golden Ale. So there you go. Cheers, Steve. Appreciate that. The sort of, I think it's a great conversation of like, I'm a huge glam fan. I think it's like, to me, it was like, I love bands like T-Rex, and I love bands like Sweet, and I love Slade and how much money Quiet Riot made them in the 80s. Like, I love all of that stuff. And then it's like you have this sort of US quote unquote glam that was completely different. You know, it had significantly more of those punk influences. You know, you could argue, maybe not musically, but like, you know, I love, and I know Steve, you love that Alice Cooper band. You know, like what was that sort of a US answer to a lot of those things? I mean, a lot grittier, a lot heavier, but sort of this sense of vaudeville and this sense of, you know, all those different things happening. I think you look at some of the more like quote unquote underground artists like Joe Bryant and some of these other groups that or people that came around. Like, I think that that to me is like one of those genres that like I love, and I don't think enough people talk about, probably because there's some like embarrassment there. Like, you know, who wants to talk about like people dressing up and makeup and stuff like that? And I'm like, I do. I want to talk about all of that. Like, I love that stuff. So all in on that stuff.
Yeah, let's give Steve the platform.
Hey, just so you know, my channel, I never chose the name because of the band Rush. It has nothing to do with their live album. It happened because I started doing a lot of work for bands, and the name of my company was not going to bring any other bands to that name, okay? Because my business, my company name's called nameonanything.com. And so it's more for corporate. And when I started doing work for bands, I thought, how am I going to attract other ones? And so what I did was I made a sister company called All the World's a Stage, and it was all about doing T-shirts and posters and, you know, embroidered hats, whatever they would want. So it was just about being on stage. That's where all that comes from. So, but I understand why you thought so.
Well, I mean, actually, it kind of makes sense now because, like, I know, like, you know, you're a pretty big like prog fan, but I don't hear you talking about Rush much. Um, no. Well, you know, now I feel bad, but I will still drink this to you. So cheers either way, regardless of who it's about or who it's for.
I just assumed it was because Steve loved Shakespeare.
But well, Steve, I mean, you know, because you were around when the Alice Cooper group was emerging. You know, talk about those, especially from Love It to Death to say Muscle of Love, the importance of Alice Cooper, the group. You know, because you know a lot of us were, you know, children,
Babies.
Yeah, we were toddlers at the time. So you know, talk if you can talk about the importance of the Alice Cooper group at the time. You can.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge for me because I can remember walking into a record store called the Inn of Sound, and that's two N's for inn, and flipping through the bins and come across Love It to Death. And you know the album cover, what it looks like. Like, holy shit, what are these guys up to? So, and that was before 18 had become a hit single. So, bought it, and, you know, didn't have to wait long for Killer to come out. You know, that was out in another 6 months. So, I mean, I was hooked. School's Out was a little bit of a letdown, but came back strong with Billion Dollar Babies. And that was the first concert I saw. It was that tour, Billion Dollar Babies. And so, yeah, I mean, I used to have hanging in my bedroom, you know, the calendar from Killer, you know, with Alice and the Noose, you know, but it was told my mother, well, it's up there because it's a calendar.
Obviously.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was funny, the transformation, because I was a huge baseball fan. I was, God. And like about the time I was 14, it just went from baseball to music. I mean, I had nothing but baseball players hanging up in my bedroom. And in a matter of months, it became nothing but rock stars, you know? And it was guys like Alice and Slade and Ian Hunter and the rest of Mott the Hoople hanging up in my bedroom. So, yeah, I mean, it was huge. Like I said in the comment there, New York Dolls, that album cover freaked parents out back in 1972. That did not play well with middle of America, you know. So, yeah, I loved it all. It was just, I mean, I feel very fortunate. There's days when it sucks being 67, but I feel very fortunate to have been born when I was, because I still think the 70s is the best decade for music, you know. So, and that's when I was a teenager. So, that is.
I think about that a lot of like being quote unquote younger. I'm 33, and so listening to the vast majority of the music that I listened to that was made well before I was even a drunken goal in my parents' mind, or whatever. I don't know. I still live in this world of like somehow we got here not thinking about those things. But what's so funny is like I have a lot of moments where I'm like, God, it would be so great to have grown up in those times. It would have been so great. It would have been so great. And it would have. And I also think too of like looking at it from the reverse side of like, it's also very, very cool to go back and discover things from 50 years ago that never knew existed. And hearing them for the first time. Like, I often wonder, like, yes, I would agree that there's like a lot of stuff from the 80s that suffers from like 80s production and is dated and all that kind of stuff, and you can choose those. But I'm also sitting there going of like, well, there's this sense of like, yeah, I love that. And the other sense of like, I never lived through that. Like, I don't know what the 80s sounded like. Like, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so it's a different perspective. And there is like this idea of like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the point, Steve, right? Is like, it is so cool to quote, to discover things from 50 years ago that I've never heard before and still feels and sounds really fresh and new and, just exciting.
So sometimes when things are dated that you never heard before, it's really fun to discover them. Again, I'll bring up Guardians of the Galaxy like I did earlier, but this is the second movie. I had never heard the song. It is by a band called Silver, and I think the song is called Wham Bam. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, I don't remember this song growing up as a kid at all. And I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I wonder when this could have been put out. And I was just like, I'm listening to how it sounds, the production, all that. I'm like, that must be about 76. And I go to look it up Google wise. I knocked it right out of the park right there at 76. But it still sounds really cool though. I really dug that one. So it's fun to discover that old stuff.
So I like 80s stuff. And when I hear people say things like, it's got that 80s drum sound, I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
Like, it sounds like drums.
Yeah, exactly. Like, to me, that's what drums sound like.
Right.
But then I got tired of 80s stuff, towards the last half of the 80s. And so I saw Glenn last night. I went out and hung out with Glenn and his family. And I was telling Glenn, so I was 14 years old and I found this album in my mom's basement, my mom and dad's basement. And in the summer of 1986, I played it constantly. But I would only play it with the doors and the windows closed because I didn't want any of my friends to know I was listening to old music.
Especially that one song.
So I totally get where you're coming from, Alex, in terms of saying like listening to music that people are old, people who are older than you are. I was in high school and I had said something to my friend like, do you like oldies? And so this was in the 80s. And she's like Led Zeppelin? I'm like, no, older than that. And she goes, you mean like the Supremes? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, no. And just like, okay, just sit right back down now. Like she shamed me.
Well, and I'll say this here, and I'll probably say it again when I keep saying when I start a video, when I do videos of like, for me, the whole like VC, like vinyl thing, I truly don't believe I have anything to offer. Like, I don't mean that to sound like really sad, but like, there's enough like big white dudes with beards talking about records. Like, there's enough of us. Like, we don't need to like saturate the market with another guy. I don't
What's
think
the
I have
one
anything to
guy's
offer.
channel? Another fat bearded guy talking records.
I think he has the best channel because I was like, yeah, it's like the one channel is like another fat bearded guy talking about records. I'm like, this is the best channel name. Oh, hey, Jeff Witcher's here. Big fan of your show, Jeff.
Oh shit, Jeff! Another
But to
Michigander.
me,
Hi, Jeff.
I enter this world purely for selfish reasons. And what I mean by selfish reasons is that for me, it literally is about finding a community. Like, I go to work and listen to like, well, this is funny because we haven't talked about jazz at all. And I know that's, who knows, but like, I'll go to work and throw on like Eric Dolphy or like Pharoah Sanders or like Alice Coltrane. Shout out to Glenn Clay because I know you love Journey and Satchidananda. Like, I'll throw on that stuff at work and I get these looks like they're about to fire me, like simply based on like what I'm listening to. And it's like, I don't have people within like my circle that I can talk to about these things. Like, I go to, this is not meant to sound like sad. It's something I've gotten enjoyment out of. Like, I go to concerts by myself now and love it.
All the time.
Love it because I go there. I don't have to drag a friend who doesn't really care one way or the other. And I go and find other people there who want to share the community and share the sense of awesomeness that's going on. And so, that's been my whole thing is like, if and when I enter this, it has nothing to do with like wanting to offer something that's missing or why is my channel great. It's literally about finding community and conversations like this to talk about these things because they don't exist elsewhere or in sort of like our day-to-day lives.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, making friends is the best.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the three of us that, we've been doing this the last couple of months, obviously we never met up. I mean, yes, Marcia, you met up with Glenn and John, and we'll get into that after we, get off the broadcast. We'll talk about that. But, this is, in fact, I think it's funny. Steve and I's first episode that we did. We just watched each other's videos, and as soon as we connected, even digitally, it was like we were already, pals. So, yeah, like you were saying, Alex, it's just a cool community, even though we haven't like physically, met up or anything. We're all here for the same reason.
So, in terms of going to concerts by yourself, I discovered that much too late. I didn't start doing that until I was in my mid 40s, and I wish I would have started, 15 years sooner because I missed out on so many concerts I would have loved to have seen because I didn't have a boyfriend who was interested in the same kind of music as me, or all my girlfriends were off, attending to their kids and stuff. So there was a good chunk of time where I didn't see any acts at all. And I regret that it took me so long to figure out that I could go and do that by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think also like we'll also recognize that it's very different also for like a woman in that space too to go to do these things by themselves versus like a man too. Like, that's a real thing. And also it's like, I think a natural part of this hobby is exposing yourself to a lot of different types of music that, I have a lot of friends that are into music, but they're into one type of music. So like, yes, if I go to a, I don't know, insert a Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert. I love Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I think they're amazing and one of the most entertaining holiday spectaculars ever. It's easy to find people who love Christmas music. I can find a 12-year-old cousin who wants to go to a Christmas show. That's great. But I'll go through that. But I'll also next month in about 3 weeks, I'm going to Peter Gabriel by myself. And 2 days after that, Trevor, shout out to you because I'm assuming you like this band. Like, I'm going to Flotsam and Jetsam after that.
Yes.
And you know what I mean? It's like I am not going to be able to find somebody who would want to go to Peter Gabriel and follow it 2 days later with going to Flotsam and Jetsam. Like, there's no way. And so it's like, but again, like every time I've gone to one of those shows, I've been able to find people, and they're like, half the time they're there by themselves too, and they're like, this is great. And sometimes I've met people at shows that I've met at previous shows that we've met at going to by ourselves. So yeah, I have no regrets about any of that now, but I agree, Marshall. Like, I wish I was doing this 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, because there's a ton of bands that are retired now or are no longer touring, or people have passed, and I'll never get to see them again because I was like, well, I'm not going to go to that show by myself. Who goes to shows by themselves? And that's sad.
Especially, especially now that there's Uber, because I would never go to necessarily like an arena show or where parking is difficult by myself. Just being a woman walking around in a dark neighborhood or whatever, I don't want to do that. But now that I could just be dropped off in front of the stadium or whatever, no worries there. So, but yeah, I wish I would have started doing that much sooner.
Yeah, I've been doing, solo shows ever since probably late teens, early 20s. Well, because the first thing that came to mind, like, none of my friends wanted to see Queensryche when I was, I don't know,
what?
2020.
I saw them by myself a couple months ago. So
they were touring the album Empire, which was huge with Silent Lucidity and all that stuff. But the cool thing with that concert was they were doing Operation Mindcrime in its entirety, because when they were touring Operation Mindcrime, they were an opening act, so they couldn't do the full thing, and concept album and all that. None of my friends wanted to go, so I'm like, I'm not missing this. So I went by myself, bought a single ticket, floor at Joe Louis Arena, and it didn't matter to me. I'd rather go by myself and not miss out. And FOMO is really big.
Wait.
I would have never gone to Joe Louis Arena in the early 90s by myself.
Right.
Steve's got a timeout, but I want to ask her before he times out.
Steve's got a.
Well, I got Queensryche was playing Joe Louis on the Empire tour. Like, were they opening for somebody, or were they headlining Joe Louis?
No, they were headlining. Suicidal Tendencies opened.
Wow, that's Silent Lucidity right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, I saw the Operation Mindcrime tour too. You're talking, what was that? The 20-year? Was it 20 or 25? Or you're talking the original?
The original. This was 1991 when they did Operation Mindcrime in its entirety.
Okay, yeah, because I saw them do it as a reunion at the House of Blues. So you're talking only 1,300 people. But I think the first time I ever went to a show by myself, I was in my 50s. It took me a long time too before I went to a show solo. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just something I never thought of. It was just always like, okay, well, if my wife doesn't want to go, or I can't find a friend to go, then I guess I'm not going. I don't know why. Go ahead.
Well, like, this was back in 2000. My sister, I think I might have told the story before. My sister was getting married in Vegas, so it was, family, bunch of friends. We all congregated in Vegas, and all my family went to the Luxor to see this new fangled thing called the Blue Man Group. And I saw on the marquee at the MGM Theater that Tom Jones was playing. And I'm like, you guys can go see the Blue Man Group. I'm going to go see TJ by myself. I don't care. And it was a phenomenal show, and Tom was kind of hungover that night, so it was awesome. Anyone else solo stuff?
It's just the norm for me now, because even if I find, friends who want to go, like they love the artist or whatever, it's just a different concert experience. Like the things that, um, like I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a good example. There's a lot of like smaller club shows, around here where it's all general admission, standing room only, and it's like, they want to hang out like back by the bar or up in the balcony, which is great, like very comfortable. And like sometimes you're like, you know what, like there's places up front, like I want to get closer, like I want to do those different things. And so, it's one of those things, like, again, like after the first couple that were kind of like, I don't know about this. It's just become the norm now. I mean, I went to the Stadium series, which was Alice Cooper, Def Leppard, and Motley Crue, and that was a big stadium. And I was like, I'll just go by myself. Like, and it was great. Like, most of the bands were great, but some not as much. But yeah, I think it's just what works. And I will say too, I mean, to Jeff's point, like talking about like, and I think Marcia, to your point too, of like parking and driving, all those different things. It 1000% is a lot of times based on like where you live, and like I'm lucky enough to live pretty much 5 minutes from downtown Columbus, where a lot of these shows are, and so whether I drive or Uber or whatever that looks like, it's a very easy thing. I mean, there's some people who might live. It's like, I mean, Steve, like, you're out in the burbs and you don't go into the city anymore. It's like that's a different thing. And so, oh man, Glenn, you're killing me with that. What a week that was. I hope to accomplish that week sometime, Glenn. That's outstanding. But, yeah, it's just normal now.
I don't even ask people if they want to go with me. I just buy a ticket for myself. I've even stopped asking.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I went with someone to a concert was, well, yeah, I mean, I know, at least two of you saw the video. It was with my daughter to see Ghost.
That's different.
That was definitely different because, I've said it before. If it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have gone. So, that was definitely special. I don't know many people around here. And as they say, when you get older, it's harder to make friends, especially if you, uproot yourself from another part of the country and somewhere else. And trying to find like-minded people is even harder than, just, meeting people altogether. Especially, going to concerts. It's definitely harder because, a lot of people don't like the same stuff as you do. And
well, and you don't want to, like, I don't know, this is it for you, Marcia, you made a point, you're like, I just got a ticket for myself. Because I've had so many times where I've had to convince people. I've bought their ticket. Like, I've literally been like, I will pay for you to go just to keep me company. And I'm like, sir, this is ridiculous. Like, you cannot afford this. Like, you cannot be affording to take people with you. So it's like, and you don't want it to be like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll check and see. Like, if there's someone who wants to go to a concert with me and they're all in and they're as excited as I am, rock on.
Right.
Like, let's party. That's gonna be great. But if they're like half in, half out, not really sure, they got to check their schedule, all those things. Like, I'm like, you know what? Tell you what, if you want to go and meet me there, we can do that. But I'm going to go and I'm going to have a great time. And if I see you there, that's also great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my wife volunteered to go to a show with me one time, and I told her no because she'd be miserable the entire time. Well, it was when we first moved out here to Seattle, and one of my favorite live bands that rarely ever toured the Midwest, they're from San Francisco, a band called Neurosis. and they were doing 2 nights in Seattle, like December 30th and the 31st, so New Year's Eve. And she's like, "Oh, we'll go to New Year's Eve," and I'm like, "No, I'll go the 30th by myself and enjoy it, because if we go together on New Year's Eve when we should be together anyway, you're going to be miserable the entire time, because it's going to be just loud, screamy, drony music, and you're going to hate it, and you'll probably leave me. So it's not worth it to go to a concert with me." So I went by myself again. So, are we good for the night? Do we kind of do our post show talk?
I think we're good for the night.
Cool. Alex, you good for a post show talk? Okay.
I don't even know what that is, but let's do it. Like, I'm
Well,
in.
we end the broadcast and we bullshit some more.
Do you, yeah, I was gonna say, do we sit and talk about all the things we just talked about? I'm in.
Yeah. So, all right, guys.
We talk about everybody who commented.
Yes.
We had some look. We didn't have a ton of viewers, but we had some big shots in this comment feed that I'm excited about. So
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for everyone for showing up on my channel. We'll do this again on Steve's in a couple weeks, and hopefully everyone has a great holiday weekend. So we'll talk to you later.
Yes, stay safe, everybody.